The story of the Lost Colony of Roanoke is one of the most famous mysteries in American history, and it has fascinated people for more than 400 years. In the late 1500s, when European countries were racing to explore and claim land in the New World, England wanted to join in the competition. Spain and Portugal had already built large empires in the Americas, full of wealth, power, and resources, and England wanted to do the same. Sir Walter Raleigh, a well-known explorer and a favorite of Queen Elizabeth I, was given permission to organize a colony in North America. His dream was to establish a permanent English settlement across the Atlantic that could give England a foothold in the New World and also act as a base to challenge the Spanish, who were then England's greatest rivals. Raleigh did not go to America himself, but he arranged for groups of settlers to travel there and begin new lives. The early attempts to start a colony were not very successful. In 1584 and 1585, English ships visited Roanoke Island off the coast of what is now North Carolina, but the first settlers had many problems. They ran out of supplies, they struggled to get along with the Native Americans who lived nearby, and they were unprepared for the harsh environment. Most of them eventually gave up and returned to England. Still, Raleigh and Queen Elizabeth wanted to try again, and they hoped a larger group of settlers might be able to succeed where the first had failed. In 1587, another attempt was made. This time, about 115 settlers traveled across the Atlantic, led by John White. This group was very different from earlier expeditions because it included not only men, but also women and children. That was unusual for the time, and it showed that the English were serious about building a permanent colony rather than just setting up a temporary camp. Among the settlers was White's daughter, Eleanor Dare, who soon gave birth to her daughter, Virginia Dare. Virginia became the first English child born in the New World, and an important symbol of hope for the colony. The settlers landed on Roanoke Island and began building homes and trying to grow food. Life on the island was very difficult. The settlers faced shortages of food almost immediately. Their attempts to farm were not very successful, and their relationships with some of the local Native American tribes were tense. While some tribes were friendly or neutral, others were suspicious or even hostile toward the English. The colonists did not have enough supplies to survive for long, so it was decided that John White, as governor, would return to England to gather more resources. White did not want to leave his family and the other settlers behind, but he had little choice. He promised to come back quickly with more supplies and more people to help the colony grow. Unfortunately, when White reached England in 1587, he found the country preparing for war. Spain had built the Spanish Armada, a great fleet of ships designed to invade England, and every English ship was needed to defend the homeland. Because of this, White could not get back to Roanoke right away. He was delayed again and again, and instead of returning after only a few months, he was forced to stay in England for 3 years. During this time, the colonists at Roanoke had no support, no extra supplies, and no contact with their homeland. Their fate was left hanging in the balance while White waited for a chance to return. Finally, in 1590, John White was able to sail back to Roanoke Island. He was filled with hope and excitement at the thought of reuniting with his family, especially his granddaughter Virginia Dare, whom he had last seen as a baby. But when he arrived, he found a shocking and heartbreaking sight. The settlement was completely deserted. There were no people, no signs of struggle, and no clear explanation for what had happened. The houses had been dismantled rather than destroyed, suggesting that the colonists had left in an orderly way. There were no bodies, no signs of violence, and no evidence of disease or starvation. It looked as if the settlers had simply disappeared. The only clues were 2 carvings. On a tree, the letters CRO had been carved. On a wooden post, the word CROATOAN was written. CROATOAN was the name of both a nearby island, now called Hatteras Island, and the Native American tribe that lived there. John White immediately believed that the colonists had moved to live with the CROATOAN people. He wanted to sail to the island to search for them, but bad weather and strong storms forced his ship to leave before he could carry out the search. Heartbroken, White returned to England and never saw the colonists again. Because of this, their fate remains a mystery that has never been solved. Over the centuries, many theories have been suggested to explain what happened to the Lost Colony of Roanoke. One of the most popular and most likely explanations is that the settlers joined the Croatoan tribe. The fact that the word Croatoan was carved at the site suggests that the colonists had moved there willingly and wanted people to know where they had gone. Living with the tribe may have been their best chance for survival, since they were running out of food and supplies. Some later reports from English settlers in Virginia described Native Americans with European features such as gray eyes or lighter skin, which may suggest that members of the Lost Colony were absorbed into local tribes through intermarriage. Another theory is that the settlers were attacked and killed by other Native American tribes that were less friendly to the English. This could have happened after White left, but there is no direct evidence of a battle, no signs of destruction at the site, and no mass graves to support this idea. Some historians believe that the settlers may have tried to build boats and leave the island. Perhaps they hoped to sail back to England or to move to another location along the coast. But if so, they may have died at sea. Others think the colonists may have moved inland in search of better land and resources. Archaeological discoveries of European artifacts in inland areas of North Carolina have suggested that at least some settlers may have tried this route. A final possibility is that the settlers simply died from hunger, disease, or harsh conditions. Life in the New World was incredibly difficult, and survival without supplies or support was always uncertain. The mystery has lasted so long because no clear evidence was ever found. John White's inability to search Croatoan Island right away left too many questions unanswered. By the time later colonies such as Jamestown were established in 1607, almost 20 years had passed, and the trail had grown cold. Stories and rumors from Native Americans sometimes suggested that Europeans were living among their tribes, but nothing could ever be proven. Archaeologists have searched Roanoke Island and Hatteras Island many times. They have found items such as European tools and pottery, but it is hard to tell whether these belong to the Lost Colony or came from later trade with Europeans. Without written records or physical proof, the fate of the Roanoke settlers remains a mystery. Even though the colony failed, its story had a lasting impact. It showed how hard it was for Europeans to start a permanent settlement in the New World. Later colonies like Jamestown learned from the mistakes of Roanoke and were better prepared to survive. The Roanoke story also became part of American folklore. The name Virginia Dare, the first English child born in America, became famous. She came to symbolize innocence, hope, and mystery, and many stories and legends were written about her. Over the centuries, the Lost Colony has inspired books, plays, and television shows, each one imagining different endings for the settlers. In modern times, archaeologists have continued to search for answers. Digs on Hatteras Island have uncovered European artifacts such as a sword hilt and pottery that seem to date back to the late 1500s. These finds suggest that some of the colonists may have gone to live with the Croatoan tribe. Other digs further inland have uncovered possible evidence that groups of Europeans moved away from Roanoke. New technologies such as ground-penetrating radar and advanced dating methods have given researchers new tools, but so far, none of the evidence has fully solved the mystery. What seems most likely is that the colonists did not all die right away, but instead survived for some time after leaving Roanoke, splitting into smaller groups and joining Native American communities. Because the truth is still unknown, myths and legends have surrounded the story. Some tales claim that supernatural forces or curses destroyed the colony. Others suggest that the settlers were abducted or vanished in mysterious ways. These ideas are more folklore than fact, but they show how deeply the story has captured people's imaginations. The Roanoke mystery is still told today, not only as history, but also as a tale of adventure, hope, and the unknown. The mystery of the Lost Colony is important because it teaches us about the challenges of exploration and survival. It shows us how dangerous life was in the past and how much people depended on each other and their environment. Even though the settlers disappeared, they helped prepare the way for later colonies that would succeed. Their courage in crossing the ocean and trying to build a new life in an unfamiliar land is remembered, even if their ending is not known. In the end, the Lost Colony of Roanoke is a story of hope, struggle, and disappearance. In 1587, over 100 men, women, and children tried to start a new life in America. By 1590, they had vanished, leaving behind only the word Croatoan. For more than 4 centuries, people have tried to discover what happened, suggesting theories about assimilation, attack, starvation, or moving inland. Modern research offers some clues, but no final answer. The settlers may be lost to history, but their story lives on. What makes the mystery so powerful is not just the disappearance, but the spirit of those who dreamed of a better life across the sea. They may be gone, but their courage and determination remain a lasting part of history, reminding us that some questions may never be fully answered, but they continue to inspire us to keep searching.